Have you ever, found yourself wondering about the real story behind one of history's most mysterious groups?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a group that was, well, part monk, part warrior, and even part international banker. It's a wild story.
It really is. Hints of betrayal, hidden secrets, and this dramatic end on, of all days, of Friday the 13th.
Exactly. So welcome, everyone. We're doing a deep dive today into the Knights Templar.
Yeah, and for this, we're drawing on quite a bit of research, especially looking at works like The Rise and Fall of the Knights Templar, which really maps out their incredible journey and, well, their shocking end.
Right. So our mission for you today is to unpack how this initially pretty humble group of knights just exploded, right?
Uh-huh.
How they became this huge force, got incredibly wealthy, played this massive role in medieval Europe.
And then just vanished. Poof, under this cloud of suspicion, leaving this legacy that, people are still talking about it today.
Seriously. So get ready for some, I think, genuinely surprising facts. We're talking financial innovations that were way ahead of their time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The political backstabbing that brought them down, and why their story just keeps popping up in history, in books, in movies.
It's way more than just battles. It's really about power, faith, and how legend and reality get, tangled up.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The origins. We need to go back to the early 12th century. The First Crusade had happened,
Right.
but the Holy Land was, frankly, a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Christian pilgrims were flooding in, but they were constantly getting attacked. Bandits, rival groups. It was dangerous.
Super dangerous. A real wild frontier situation. And into that steps this French nobleman, Hugues de Payens, and about 8 buddies, knights. This is around 1119.
And they had this idea, which sounds kind of crazy for knights back then.
Totally radical. They go to King Baldwin II of Jerusalem and say, look, we'll take monastic vows, poverty, chastity, obedience like monks.
Wow.
But we'll be armed, and we'll protect the pilgrims on the roads.
So it's not just being bodyguards. They're taking vows. Where did the name come from?
Good question. They were given lodging in the royal palace, which happened to be on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem.
Okay. Temple Mount. Templars. Makes sense.
Exactly. So they became the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, or, Templars for short.
And this dual identity, monk and warrior, that was the revolutionary part.
Absolutely groundbreaking. Before them, you were either a monk praying in a monastery or a knight fighting on a battlefield. They combined it. The holy warrior.
Did the church approve of this? Seems a bit unusual.
Well, it took a bit, but yeah, hugely important moment. The Council of Troyes in 1129. The church officially recognized them as a legitimate order.
And that was the green light they needed.
That was everything. It legitimized them, gave them credibility, and basically paved the way for them to expand like wildfire.
So once they had that official backing, they weren't just a small group anymore. They became, an elite fighting force.
Yeah.
The image many people have of the Crusades.
Totally. Their look alone was iconic. Those stark white cloaks, the big red cross.
Symbolizing martyrdom, right?
Exactly. Sacrifice. It apparently struck fear into enemies and, inspired their allies. But it wasn't just the look. Their real power. Discipline.
Okay, tell us about that. What made their discipline so special compared to other medieval armies?
Well, medieval armies could be pretty chaotic, Lots of individual knights seeking glory. The Templars fought as a single unit. Incredibly tight formations. They had strict rules, like really strict. And they had this famous rule, never retreat unless you were outnumbered at least 3-1.
3-1, that's incredible commitment.
Incredible. That kind of cohesion and just sheer refusal to break ranks, that made them terrifyingly effective on the battlefield.
And you see that effectiveness in key battles, right? Like Montgisard?
Oh, Montgisard in 1177 is a classic example. You had a much smaller crusader force, spearheaded by the Templars, led by the young leprous king Baldwin IV.
Right, the leper king.
And they absolutely routed Saladin's much, much larger army. The Templars often acted as the vanguard, the shock troops, hitting the enemy lines first with that heavy cavalry charge. Often that charge alone could break an enemy formation.
So they weren't just hired swords for kings, they had this religious authority behind them too.
A huge element. They answered primarily to the Pope, not local kings or bishops. Influential figures like Saint Bernard of Clairvaux were massive champions for them. He called them invincible champions of God. They were seen, quite literally, as the sword of the church.
Okay, so we've got the elite warriors, the sword of the church, but there's this whole other side to them that's maybe even more surprising, right? their economic power.
Absolutely. This is often overlooked, but you could argue it was their most revolutionary contribution. Forget the battlefield for a second. Think multinational corporation.
How'd that even happen? Where did the money come from?
Donations. Massive donation. From all over Europe, people left them land, estates, gold, crops, livestock, you name it. They quickly became one of the biggest landowners on the continent.
Wow. And they didn't just sit on it.
Not at all. They managed these assets incredibly efficiently. They were expert administrators, running farms, collecting rents, operating mills, even administering entire villages. They had preceptories, sort of command centers, all over Europe.
But the banking thing,
Yeah.
that sounds really advanced for the 12th and 13th centuries. How'd that work?
It was ingenious, really. Let's say you were a pilgrim or a merchant heading to the Holy Land. Carrying lots of cash was incredibly risky.
Right, bandits again.
Exactly. So you could go to the Templar preceptory in, say, London, deposit your gold or silver, and they'd give you a coded letter of credit. Then, when you arrived in Acre or Jerusalem, you'd go to the Templar house there, present the letter, and withdraw the equivalent amount, minus a fee, of course.
So, like a medieval traveler's check or wire transfer.
Yeah.
Almost like an early Western Union.
Pretty much. It made travel and trade vastly safer and easier. It lubricated the wheels of commerce across continents. Their strongholds weren't just forts, they were secure vaults, financial centers. People trusted them.
And that independence we mentioned earlier, answering only to the Pope, that played into this too.
Hugely. They were exempt from local taxes. They could move wealth across borders easily. They lent money to kings and popes. They even managed the French royal treasury for a time.
Okay, so you've got this incredibly wealthy, powerful, independent military and financial organization operating across Europe and the Holy Land.
Yeah, you can see how influential they were. But you can also see, well, how they might start to make some powerful people nervous. That combination of wealth, military might, and independence from secular rulers, it was unique and potentially dangerous.
Let's fast forward a bit. For almost 2 centuries, they're fighting in the Holy Land. But things were changing, weren't they? The Crusader states were under immense pressure.
Immense pressure. The Muslim world became more unified, especially under leaders like Saladin and later the Mamluk Sultan Baybars. They were relentless in pushing the Crusaders back. It was a slow, grinding loss of territory. Tripoli fell. Other cities.
And then came Acre, 1291.
Acre, that was the big one. Their last major stronghold on the mainland Levant. The siege was brutal, the defense was heroic, but in the end, Acre fell. It was a devastating blow. The end of the Crusader kingdom in the Holy Land, really.
What did that mean for the Templars psychologically? Their whole reason for being was tied to protecting that land, those pilgrims.
It triggered an existential crisis. If there's no Holy Land to defend, what's the purpose of this massive military order? Where do they fit in now?
And were people starting to view them differently back in Europe?
Definitely. The criticism started mounting. Whispers turned into open complaints. They were seen as arrogant, secretive, maybe too rich, too powerful. This idea of them being a state within a state really took hold. Their autonomy, their wealth, it bred suspicion and envy.
So after Acre, they pulled back to Cyprus, hoping to regroup.
Yeah, they retreated to Cyprus, still dreaming of launching a new crusade to take back Jerusalem. But honestly, the mood in Europe had shifted. The main era of crusading was kind of winding down. Kings were consolidating power, building nations.
And maybe saw the Templars less as holy warriors and more as an obstacle?
Or a piggy bank.
Exactly. A rich, independent organization sitting on vast wealth with no clear military mission anymore. That looked very tempting to certain rulers, especially one in particular.
Which brings us to their downfall. And it wasn't a battlefield defeat.
No, not at all. The fatal blow came from the throne of France. King Philip I, known as Philip the Fair.
Philip the Fair. What was his motivation? It sounds pretty calculated.
Oh, it was utterly ruthless. Philip was chronically short of cash. He debased the coinage, expelled the Jews to seize their assets, and he was massively in debt. Guess who to?
The Templars.
Bingo. He saw a golden opportunity, destroy the order, cancel his enormous debts, and seize their legendary treasure for the French crown. 2 birds, 1 stone.
And he picked a very specific date to make his move.
He did. Friday, October 13th, 1307. On that morning, in a coordinated strike across France, Philip's men arrested hundreds of Templars simultaneously. Just swooped in at dawn. Even the Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, was arrested in Paris. So that's the origin of the whole Friday the 13th is unlucky superstition. this event.
That's widely believed to be the major source of it, yeah. This incredibly powerful, respected order just dismantled overnight, starting on that date, and the arrests were just the start. Then came the interrogations.
And these weren't gentle questionings, I assume.
Far from it. We're talking brutal torture, methods designed to break anyone. Under that duress, many Templars confessed to all sorts of shocking things.
Like what? What were the charges?
Oh, heresy, denying Christ, spitting on the cross, worshipping idols, supposedly a head called Baphomet, institutionalized homosexuality, financial corruption, secret nighttime rituals. Basically, a laundry list of the worst things imaginable at the time.
Were these charges real, do we think?
Yeah.
Or just extracted under torture?
Almost certainly fabricated or wildly exaggerated, extracted under torture.
Whoa.
Many Templars later recanted their confessions when they were away from the torturers, saying they only confessed to stop the pain. But the damage was done. Philip used these confessions to whip up public outrage.
What about the Pope? Clement V. Didn't the Templars answer to him? Couldn't he protect them?
He was in a tough spot. Pope Clement V was actually French, and heavily under Philip's influence. The papacy was even based in Avignon, France at the time, not Rome. Initially, Clement seemed skeptical of the charges.
But Philip kept up the pressure.
Relentlessly. Political pressure, threats. Eventually, Clement buckled. He ordered the arrest of Templars outside France too, although enforcement varied. But crucially, in 1312, at the Council of Vienne, under immense pressure from Philip, Clement formally dissolved the order. Not condemned for heresy, interestingly, but dissolved for the good of the church, because their reputation was supposedly too damaged.
And what happened to Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master?
He, along with another high-ranking Templar, had initially confessed under torture. But then, in 1314, brought before a public scaffold in Paris to reiterate his confession, he dramatically recanted. He proclaimed his innocence and the order's innocence.
That must have infuriated Philip.
Oh, big time. Philip considered it a relapse into heresy. That same evening, de Molay and Geoffrey de Charny were taken to an island in the Seine and slowly burned at the stake.
And didn't de Molay issue a curse from the flames?
That's the legend, and it's a powerful one. As he burned, he supposedly summoned King Philip and Pope Clement to appear before God's judgment within the year.
And did they?
Eerily enough, yes. Pope Clement V died just a month later. King Philip V died in a hunting accident before the year was out. Whether it was a curse or coincidence, it certainly added to the Templar mystique.
So the order is officially dissolved, the leaders executed. What happened to all the ordinary knights and all that wealth?
It varied. Many surviving knights were pensioned off or allowed to join other military orders, especially the Knights Hospitaller.
Ah, they're old rivals, in a way.
Right. The Pope ordered most of the Templar lands and assets transferred to the Hospitallers, though kings like Philip certainly kept a hefty chunk for themselves. Some knights just faded into civilian life.
But the story didn't just end there, did it? The rumors started almost immediately.
Oh yeah. Tales of Templars escaping the purge, maybe fleeing with the treasure or sacred relics. Popular destinations in these legends include Scotland, linking them to Robert the Bruce and Bannockburn, or Portugal, where the order was essentially refounded under a new name, the Order of Christ, which later played a big role in Portuguese exploration.
So their legacy became less about historical records and more about legend.
Exactly. Preserved in whispers, speculation, and eventually in literature and secret societies. You see groups like the Freemasons, particularly in the 18th and 19th centuries, claiming some form of lineage or inspiration from the Templars.
And they pop up everywhere in fiction, don't they?
Yep.
Guardians of the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, keepers of ancient secrets.
Totally. They're the perfect mysterious ancient order. Their symbols, that red cross on white, the seal with two knights on one horse signifying their early poverty, the bearded warrior knight, they're instantly recognizable and loaded with meaning. Think Assassin's Creed, the Da Vinci Code, Indiana Jones. They're a cultural shorthand for historical mystery and conspiracy.
Why them, though? Why have the Templars generated so many more myths than, say, the Hospitallers or the Teutonic Knights?
I think a big part of it is the dramatic, unjust way they were destroyed, that sudden fall from grace, the accusations, the torture, the curse. It creates a narrative vacuum.
A vacuum? How so?
Well, Philip destroyed many of their records. The Vatican kept its own files on the trials, sealed for centuries. So for a long time, there wasn't a clear official counter-narrative to Philip's propaganda. That absence of hard facts left huge room for speculation for alternative histories to flourish.
But didn't something come out relatively recently that shed more light on it?
Yes, that's hugely important. In 2007, the Vatican finally released documents from its archives, most significantly the Chinon parchment.
Okay, what did that show?
It was documentation from a papal investigation held shortly after the arrests. And crucially, it showed that Pope Clement V had actually absolved the Templar leaders of heresy in secret, finding their confessions were likely coerced. He acknowledged they might have committed some errors, but not heresy.
Wow, so that confirms it was basically a political hit job by Philip.
Pretty much. It showed the Pope knew, or at least strongly suspected, they weren't heretics in the way Philip claimed, but he lacked the political will, or maybe the power, to stand up to the French king publicly. The dissolution was political expediency, not theological necessity.
Did finding that parchment quiet down the conspiracy theories? Or did it just add fuel?
If anything, it reignited interest. It confirmed the injustice, which makes the what-ifs even more potent. What if they did find something under the Temple Mount back in the 12th century? Ancient scrolls, relics. Could that secret knowledge be why Philip really wanted them gone?
So the questions linger. Guardians of a secret. Influence on later movements like the Enlightenment or even the founding of America.
These ideas are out there, absolutely. Mainstream historians tend to be very skeptical, pointing to lack of concrete evidence for, finding the Holy Grail or founding America. But the line between documented history and compelling fiction gets very blurry with the Templars.
It seems the public fascination isn't going away.
Not at all. They've become these incredibly potent symbols of lost knowledge, resistance against tyranny, secret society, sacred duty. In an age that loves a good conspiracy theory and is maybe a bit skeptical of official narratives, the Templars are kind of the perfect historical enigma.
So summing up, the Templars weren't just characters in a legend. They were real, complex people.
Deeply human, yeah. Devout, brave, proud, innovative, probably arrogant at times, certainly flawed. They fought for their god, got incredibly rich doing it, pioneered things like international banking.
And then got crushed by political ambition and greed. Their story is like a microcosm of medieval Europe: war, faith, power, corruption.
Exactly. And the legends grew out of that martyrdom, that sense of injustice.
It really serves as a cautionary tale, too, doesn't it? About concentrating that much power, military, religious, economic, in one place.
Absolutely. It shows how even organizations founded with pious intentions can become targets when they grow too powerful, too independent, especially when kings feel threatened or just greedy. It's a timeless lesson about power dynamics.
And yet, despite the historical reality, the legend just keeps echoing.
It does. It resonates.
Which maybe leaves us with a final thought for you to ponder. What does the enduring power, this grip, the Knights Templar legend still has on our imagination, tell us about our own ongoing search for hidden truths, especially when history leaves those gaps, those spaces for mystery?
Yeah. What does that fascination say about us?
Oh.
Something to think about.